Club Lounge. Whether you're a longtime listener or you just stumbled on us today, first of all, hi, thank you for joining us. I'm so excited because, Eliott, today we're diving into a book that's been on my mind nonstop since I picked it up.
Oh, absolutely. This one's a bit of a roller coaster, isn't it? We're talking about Alex Michaelides' The Silent Patient, a psychological thriller that's, well, let's just say it's anything but silent when it comes to plot twists.
Right? It's one of those books where the moment you finish, you just sit there staring into space, questioning every decision you've ever made. Honestly, if you're listening and haven't read it, hit pause.
Or rush to your nearest bookstore. You'll thank us later.
Exactly. Quick PSA though, fair warning. We're going all in, spoilers and all, so don't say you weren't warned.
Now, if you're new to The Silent Patient, here's the very basics to get you intrigued. It's a mind-bending, suspense-filled story where art, psychology, and obsession collide. But Clara, I think we both agree. This book truly lives in its details.
Oh, for sure. From enigmatic characters to twists that you absolutely won't see coming, it's just, gah, where do we even start? Listen, if you're not subscribed yet, this is the perfect time. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, do all the things. We have a lot of episodes coming your way, but this one, it's gonna be special. Okay, so after that whirlwind of excitement discussing The Silent Patient, let's take a step back and talk about the brilliant mind behind it, Alex Michaelides. Because honestly, after finishing that book, quick reminder, it left me emotionally unraveling. I just had to know more about the person who created such a masterpiece.
Understandably so. I mean, this is his debut novel, Clara. His debut. Alex Michaelides is a British Cypriot author who studied English literature at Cambridge before moving into screenwriting. And fun fact, his background in psychology played a role in shaping the book's foundation.
Wait, pause. I had no idea he had a psychology background. That explains so much about how he nailed the mental unraveling in this story. Like every twist lands with such precision.
Exactly, and his approach feels so cerebral, yet emotionally gripping. The Silent Patient dropped in 2019 and became an instant phenomenon. It debuted as a #1 New York Times bestseller, which for a first-time novelist is remarkable.
Remarkable? Unheard of, more like. Plus, let's not forget it snagged the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Mystery Thriller that same year and has been translated into multiple languages already. Clearly, readers everywhere need their dose of psychological turmoil, right?
I'd wager the turmoil bit is part of its charm, and it's been translated into over 51 languages, selling millions worldwide. People love how it ventures into obsession and trauma. Classic thriller territory, yes, but done with such finesse.
Exactly. What struck me is how accessible it is, yet the layers are just chef's kiss. Like, you could read it casually or dive deep into the psychology of every single character, and both ways you're hooked. No wonder Hollywood came calling to adapt it.
Indeed, Michaelides has a knack for creating stories that bridge suspenseful storytelling with artistic nuance. It's evident why this book has resonated so universally. It feels both intimate in its psychological depth and epic in its mystery.
Now I'm just channeling my inner book nerd fangirl again. But hey, can you blame me? What's better than an author who gets you questioning everything while keeping you thoroughly entertained?
Nothing, Clara. Absolutely nothing.
All right, Eliott. Speaking of questioning everything, let's unpack the real heartstopper of this story. Alicia Berenson, celebrated painter, wife to Gabriel, and, oh yes, the woman who shot her husband 5 times in the face before falling completely silent. Like not a single word since. Where do we even begin?
Yes, it's a shocking premise, isn't it? It reads almost like something out of a Greek tragedy. She's found next to his body with the murder weapon in hand, but instead of denying or confessing, she chooses complete silence.
And that's what makes it so chilling, right? Her refusal to speak just, I don't know, multiplies the mystery. It's like a riddle wrapped in layers of silence. And where does she end up? The Grove, a high-security psychiatric facility in London. Which, by the way, sounds like both the creepiest and saddest place on Earth.
Agreed. But then in comes Theo Faber, the ever-curious psychotherapist who sees Alicia's silence less as a wall and more as a challenge to be scaled. He essentially orchestrates his way into the Grove, convinced that he's the one who can make her talk.
Oh, and it's not just professional curiosity either. You can tell Theo's motives are kind of murky. There's something personal about his obsession with Alicia's case. Like, Duda, are you just trying to save her, or are you trying to save yourself?
Precisely. That ambiguity in Theo's character is fascinating. He presents himself as noble, yet there's an undercurrent of something darker. It makes you question his reliability as a narrator, which is so central to the story's psychological tension.
And let's talk about this painting of hers, Alcestis. It's the only statement Alicia makes after the murder, and wow, what a statement. A self-portrait titled, after a Greek myth where, spoiler, a wife sacrifices herself for her husband. Like, what does that even mean here?
Exactly, the layers here are rich. In the myth, Alcestis' act of self-sacrifice is perceived as both noble and tragic. But in Alicia's case, it's ambiguous whether the painting glorifies sacrifice or harbours resentment. It's deeply personal, almost cryptic, and becomes integral to how Theo begins to unravel her psyche.
Yeah, and Theo just latches onto it, right? He sees the painting as some kind of key to her silence, like that mix of obsession and determination. Ugh, it's fascinating to watch, but also totally unsettling.
Indeed, Clara, it feels as though the painting serves as a mirror, reflecting not just Alicia's trauma, but also Theo's own unravelling psyche. All of which sets the stage for the dark and twisty exploration to come.
Right, and it's only part one of the book. Honestly, the way Michaelides packs so much tension and intrigue right from the start is just incredible. But okay, let's hit pause here because Theo's next move, digging into Alicia's past, might just raise more questions than answers. So, picking up where we left off, Theo's next move, digging into Alicia's past, is wild, Eliott. It's like he's not just trying to understand her silence, but piecing together clues like a psychotherapist turned detective. Seriously, he's channeling Sherlock Holmes vibes here.
Indeed, Clara. He dives headfirst, doesn't he? Interviewing Alicia's cousin Paul, her gallerist Jean Failly, and her brother-in-law Max. And each of them gives such conflicting accounts of her relationship with Gabriel, her deceased husband. It's like peeling back layers of an onion, where every revelation adds complexity rather than clarity.
Right. And honestly, they're all a little shady, aren't they? Like Paul with his weirdly defensive vibe. Jean Felix, who just can't seem to let go of Alicia. And Max, Mr. Casually Problematic. I mean, who do you trust with these people?
Yes, precisely. The deeper Theo digs, the murkier everything becomes. And it's almost as if the narrative is daring us to question the reliability of not just Alicia's acquaintances, but Theo himself. His need to understand Alicia feels increasingly obsessive.
Oh, totally. And speaking of murky, let's dive into that diary. Because, wow, when Theo finds it, it's like someone just tossed a match into a room full of gasoline. The way Alicia writes about feeling watched, stalked by some mysterious figure, it gave me goosebumps.
Absolutely, Clara. Those diary entries are haunting. Her fear and paranoia leap off the page. She believes someone is following her, but Gabriel dismisses it outright. It adds this layer of psychological unease, doesn't it? You're left wondering, was she genuinely in danger, or was her mind unravelling under stress?
Exactly. Like, is she paranoid, or is she onto something? And Gabriel, the way he brushes it off, it weirdly added to the suspicion for me. Plus, the entries show Alicia spiraling emotionally even before the murder. You can feel her isolation.
And it's that isolation that Theo seems to deeply connect with. Although in his case, he doesn't write a diary. He starts stalking his own wife, Kathy. An unsettling parallel, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, yes. Theo finds out she's having an affair, and instead of confronting her, he basically turns into a one-man surveillance team. He's following her, watching her meet this other guy. Like, Theo, buddy, are you okay?
It's deeply unsettling, Clara. What's so fascinating is the way Michaelides juxtaposes Theo's reaction to his wife's betrayal with Alicia's reaction to her own sense of betrayal and fear. Both characters are unravelling, yet they express it so differently.
Exactly. And honestly, I love how those parallels sneak up on you. You see Theo's motives get murkier as he becomes more obsessed with Alicia and her case. It's like he's projecting his own pain onto her story, so messy, but so human.
That's what makes it riveting. Could Theo's fixation on Alicia be more about his own fractured psyche than about helping her? These moments blur the line between therapist and patient, making the story even darker and more compelling.
Ugh, totally. And this diary discovery? It's like Theo just opened Pandora's box. I feel like we're on the brink of something explosive, and I cannot wait to see where this all goes next. You know, Eliott, after everything we discussed about Theo's obsession and Alicia's diary, I genuinely thought the story couldn't get any more intense. But this part, it hits even harder. Theo goes deeper into her psyche, and it's like each revelation pulls him closer to the edge.
Absolutely, Clara. This is where we get a glimpse into Alicia's childhood. A turbulent one, to say the least. Losing her mother in a car crash is tragic enough. But then to hear her father say he wished she had died instead.
What? I mean, that absolutely wrecked me. Can you imagine growing up with that kind of emotional baggage? It's just
unthinkable, truly. And it's this revelation that reshapes Theo's understanding of Alicia. Her enduring silence starts to feel less like defiance and more like a deep scar of unresolved grief and trauma.
right. It adds so much depth to her character. And you can tell Theo feels, I don't know, some kind of connection, maybe even an obligation to fix her. Like he's not just her therapist anymore. He's
Crossing some very blurry lines indeed. And then, Clara, we hit the breakthrough moment. Alicia speaks. After years of utter silence, she starts to let Theo in.
oh my gosh, yes. I practically cheered when that happened. She starts talking about her life with Gabriel. Parts of it sound so idyllic, but then there's this undercurrent of isolation. Like she's painting this picture of love, but behind it,
Yes, there's darkness, isn't there? And Theo feels he's making progress. But Alicia stops short of revealing the entire truth. It's as if she's testing him, slowly exposing pieces of her world to gauge how far he's willing to go.
exactly. And then she drops the bombshell about the night of the murder. A masked man breaking in, tying her up, forcing her to watch as he confronts Gabriel. I was on the edge of my seat.
It's gripping, isn't it? The masked intruder gives Gabriel a devastating choice. His life or Alicia's. It paints this chilling scenario, one that distorts everything we think we know about their relationship.
Right? And Alicia recounting all of this, it's like you can feel her reliving every moment, every decision. What's wild is you don't even know if she's telling the truth. Is this real, or is it her way of coping?
Precisely, Clara. The ambiguity is unsettling, and it makes you question, at this point, if Theo is unravelling the truth or merely playing into Alicia's narrative. Either way, the tension is palpable.
Ugh, it's so intense. And honestly, just when you think you're starting to get a handle on what's happening, you have to stop and ask yourself, do we even know these characters at all? Unreal, Eliott. Seriously, after everything Alicia went through that night, to hear her say that Gabriel begged for his own life, asking the intruder to kill her instead, it's just heartbreaking and infuriating all at once.
It's shocking, isn't it? Gabriel's true character emerges in this moment of crisis, and it completely shatters Alicia's perception of him. This is the man she loved, trusted, a man whose cowardice in that single moment erased any semblance of the life they'd built together.
Right? She's tied up, helpless, and the man she thought would protect her just throws her under the bus. It's heartbreaking and infuriating all at once. No wonder Alicia grabs the gun and takes matters into her own hands. I mean, could it even have gone any other way?
No, Clara, I don't believe it could have. What's so fascinating is how this act wasn't just about Gabriel's betrayal. It was about Alicia reclaiming control in the most devastating way. Her silence after that speaks volumes. It's deafening, truly.
Oh, absolutely. But then, here's the twist that left my jaw on the floor. The masked intruder. It wasn't just some random attacker. It was Theo. Theo, Eliott. Can you believe it?
It's a staggering revelation. Theo, the man we've been rooting for as Alicia's saviour, turns out to be the orchestrator of the entire incident. It shines a new and deeply unsettling light on his character and his motives. He didn't just stumble upon Alicia's story, he created it.
Right? And the reason behind it? Gabriel was having an affair with Theo's wife, Kathy. So Theo breaks into their house, not to kill Gabriel, but to terrorize him. It's revenge, plain and simple. But that one decision, it sets everything spiraling out of control.
It does. Theo's goal wasn't violence, but intimidation. Yet the fear he instilled became the catalyst for Alicia's actions. It's a chilling reminder of how unintended consequences can unfold. He thought he was in control, yet he unwittingly unleashed chaos.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Alicia wasn't lying when she said there was an intruder. She didn't know it was Theo. That's what makes this twist hit so hard. It forces you to reevaluate everything you thought you knew about both of them.
Precisely, Clara. The narrative shifts completely. What we once saw as Alicia's delusion or paranoia is revealed to be grounded in truth. And Theo, who was supposed to be the hero of the story, is exposed as the source of its tragedy.
Ugh, it just blows my mind how Michaelides pulls this off. It's so intricate, so layered. And you know what? It makes me even more curious about what Alicia does next. Because let's be real, someone like her isn't going to go quietly. You know, Eliott? I couldn't stop thinking about what Alicia's next move would be, and then, bam, the diary. Her silence wasn't just broken, it was obliterated. She writes down every detail, every truth, and uses it to expose Theo. It's like her final masterpiece, turning her pain into a weapon. How poetic is that?
It's utterly compelling. Alicia's silence, which once seemed impenetrable, transforms into this written roar of truth. And the fact that she documents Theo's role in Gabriel's murder, those diary pages might as well have been her kintsugi, the art of fixing brokenness, albeit in such a tragic, irreversible way.
Right? And the way she flips the power dynamic. She doesn't speak. She doesn't fight. She just writes it all down and, injects herself with morphine. Like, what? I did not see that coming.
Indeed, Clara, it's a staggering final act of defiance. By putting herself into a coma, Alicia ensures that Theo cannot manipulate or destroy the evidence she's left behind. It's her way of seizing control again, even as she retreats into stillness.
And Theo? I mean, he's spiraling, isn't he? The obsession that drove him to Alicia in the first place, it just closes in on him. And the police finding that diary? Game over for our so-called protagonist.
Absolutely, Clara. The diary is the linchpin, the undoing of Theo Faber. What's tragic here is how his delusions about helping Alicia ultimately backfire, exposing not just his role in the crime, but also the devastating self-destruction his obsession has caused. It's Greek tragedy at its most poignant.
Totally. And the ending? It's like this perfect, haunting, full circle. Alicia stays silent forever this time. But her words, those written pages, they scream the truth louder than anything she could have said, and man, that is some next-level storytelling.
Indeed, Clara, it's both satisfying and deeply unsettling. Alicia's silence remains her defining trait, but her words carry the weight of justice. And Theo, the man who thought he could control the narrative, becomes its greatest casualty.
So, Eliott, after all of that, here's the lingering question. What is the silent patient really about? I mean, beyond the twists and the tragedy, is it just a clever psychological thriller, or are we looking at something much deeper here?
Oh, Clara, it's so much deeper. At its core, this is a story about silence, what we choose to say and what we withhold. Alicia's silence? It's not just a lack of words, it's a response, a protest, a kind of weapon against the chaos around her.
Exactly. Her silence isn't passive. It's loud, if that makes sense. Like, her refusal to speak says more than any confession ever could. And the longer she stays quiet, the more it drives everyone around her absolutely bonkers.
Yes, and isn't that fascinating? Alicia's silence forces others to fill the void with their assumptions and projections. It becomes a mirror, reflecting the complexities of trauma, guilt, and grief, none more so than in Theo's case.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of Theo, let's talk betrayal. I mean, this book is dripping with it. Gabriel betrays Alicia in the worst possible way. Theo betrays, well, literally everyone. And honestly, for a while you don't even realize he's the biggest backstabber of them all.
Indeed, betrayal is woven into every relationship here, isn't it? Alicia and Gabriel's marriage, Theo and Kathy's, and of course Theo's betrayal of Alicia herself. What makes it so compelling is how these betrayals are framed, not just as moral failings, but as deeply human vulnerabilities.
Ugh, yes. And what about the psychological manipulation? Theo starts off as this seemingly noble guy, but it's all smoke and mirrors. By the time the truth comes out, you're like, wait, am I rooting for a straight-up villain here?
Precisely, Clara. Michaelides plays with our perceptions so expertly. Theo's presented as the hero, the saviour. Yet in hindsight, every one of his actions is laced with manipulation toward Alicia, the staff at the Grove, and even us as readers.
Yes, that unreliable narrator angle is pure genius. You think you're getting this clear, objective view of the story, but nope. Turns out everything we know is coming from the guy who's orchestrating all the chaos.
And isn't that the beauty of it? The novel turns the concept of reliability on its head. Even Alicia, through her silence, or later her diary, invites doubt. Who's telling the truth? Who's the real victim? It keeps us questioning everything right until the end.
Totally. And honestly, that's why I keep coming back to this book. Every theme, silence, betrayal, manipulation, unreliable narration, it's like this brilliantly crafted web. You can pull any thread, and the whole thing just keeps unraveling. You know, Eliott, after dissecting all those layers of silence, betrayal, and manipulation in The Silent Patient, I think I need a moment to breathe. It's such an emotional roller coaster when you piece it all together, isn't it?
Couldn't agree more, Clara. This book demands so much of its readers, and I think that's precisely why it sticks with you long after you turn the last page.
Exactly. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for diving into this wild ride with us. If you enjoyed the episode, and let's be honest, how could you not? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and, oh yeah, hit that notifications bell so you don't miss the next one.
Indeed, Clara. And if our review inspired you to pick up The Silent Patient, you can find the affiliate link in the description below. It costs nothing extra for you, but it helps support what we do here on the podcast.
And that's right. Think of it as your way of buying us metaphorical coffee while getting your hands on a fantastic book. Win-win, right?
Absolutely, Clara. And before we sign off, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a comment below with your thoughts on today's episode. Or even better, let us know which books you'd like us to cover in the future.
Yes, we're always on the lookout for our next literary obsession. Speaking of which, Eliott, should we tease next week's episode?
Oh, I think we must. All I'll say is, if you've ever wondered what really goes on behind closed doors in the world of high society, you won't want to miss it. Intrigued?
Ooh, so cryptic, Eliott. I love it. All right, friends, that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for hanging out in the Book Club Lounge, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye for now, and happy reading.